Inflation is easing, incentives are up, rate cuts are coming, but why do Kiwi businesses still feel stuck?
We are back in your life, and today we are talking about business confidence. Inflation is down. Interest rates have dropped. The government is creating incentives for businesses to spend more money. Yet, business confidence is low. Matt, welcome to the podcast. Tell me, why are businesses going so tough right now?
The enthusiasm, I love it. Look, in life, there's a season for everything, and in business, there's a season for everything. And unfortunately, at the moment, we're in what I would refer to as the grindy season. And business confidence is one of those things that it definitely follows the cycle of the economy, but is also probably influenced by a lot of other things that businesses as individual business units experience, such as trying to find the right people to hire, cost inflation, supply chain issues, Trump, tariffs, all that stuff. So that's kind of, you get the like micro part of it, and then you get the whole macro part, which is like, if money lending is tight and costs are high, and New Zealand's currency, for example, is not doing very well. All these things like create an environment where a business has to operate, and that gives you the baseline of your confidence. And then I'm probably going to get murdered on the internet for this. I think New Zealand has a huge productivity issue, and I don't just mean the individual person working. I just mean that as a country, we have probably too many public holidays. And I also think where those public holidays fall within the year needs to be addressed, because at the start of the year, when you come back from already a long Christmas break, it takes most New Zealand businesses 2 or 3 months to wind up again. And then bang, you've got public holiday, short week. I think we likely have too many sick days, all these things that, I'm going to get shot for. And I'm not against the holiday. I like them as much as everyone else, but I just think, if a business is in trouble, you go make some changes to how that business runs so that you can do better. If a country is in trouble, well, you have to look at some of the reasons why that might be.
I think it's more to do with like our mindset as Kiwis than anything else. To be honest, that comparing us to the States is like a perfect example. Like the American dream, I want to go for something bigger. I'm happy to talk about it. People celebrate me opposed to the tall poppy syndrome, and the amount of people who will talk themselves out of success. And you know this, Mike, from all the interviews we've done, the most successful people by far are the ones that have actually thought they're capable of achieving something great.
Yeah, 100%. I think if we could probably break it down into two kind of sectors of thought there. You've got the macro and the micro. And this is around that kind of micro, what is happening in New Zealand, in the economy, what is our mindset, what are the interest rates, all of the things that we really deal with on a day-to-day basis. And I guess some of the things that kind of present some actual headwinds to us kind of picking up some confidence.
And I mean, the second part of it, my dissertation on the problem here was definitely going to be tall poppy syndrome, lack of motivation, getting shot down if you're trying to do well. And then you get this whole thing where there's, the people who aren't doing so well will just try to drag down the system a bit. But you look at America, great example, right? In America, they have low tax for the rich. The reason is because every American person is subscribed to the American dream. They think they're going to be the next rich person. But more than that, do they have sick days? No. Do they have holidays? Not really. Public holidays, one a year, July 4th. Like they don't have the same amount of downtime as a business and as a country that we do. And as a result, the American economy has been described in various ways over the years. Rockstar economy, strong, second or first biggest in the world. I know they're a bigger population, but it's more than that.
Yeah, and I think that probably dovetails really well into one of the other factors that are influencing New Zealand's mindset at the moment is America. And the uncertainty around America, Donald Trump, tariffs. What's he going to do next? Is the market going to go up, down? Am I going to have credit tomorrow? What are dairy prices like? That really does, unfortunately, weigh on the rest of the world. And I think at the moment, definitely on New Zealanders a little bit.
Well, if you ran an exporting business and you wanted to grow that business, there's a lot of risk associated, right? Like you do not want to take a punt on additional costs or additional staff members if you don't have a relatively high degree of confidence that you're going to be successful. And Trump with tariffs creates a lot of risk.
I do think there's a term in economics called diminishing marginal utility. And I don't know what the reverse of that is, but the more he does it and the more he backs off things and the more he just makes noise and nothing tangibly comes from it, I do think the world will eventually the rest of the world will just fatigue of this kind of constant uncertainty from Donald Trump and will probably just start to do their own thing.
It's kind of like your crazy drunk uncle at the party and just kind of like rambling on. And at some point, maybe the first couple of things, you're like, you can't say that, mate. And then it goes a bit more and you're like, all right, mate.
Just sit in the corner.
Yeah, sit in the corner.
Just sit in the corner.
Yeah.
Just reminds me of Chicken Little. The sky is falling.
Yeah,
the sky is falling.
Exactly right. And I think Kiwis will just fatigue of not doing things because of the uncertainty out of the States and so will the rest of the world. And we'll kind of just go, you know what? We've got maybe 3 years left. Let's just keep rolling with it. Yeah.
But I mean, look, if we take it back to business confidence, so my 2 cents are my 2 cents. They might be wrong. They might be right. Ultimately, it doesn't matter, right? Because one person is not going to be able to influence the outcomes of a country. But you know who is? All the people in the country. If every single person has that better mindset of going above and beyond, of doing everything 1% better every day, or I have this great saying, over promise and over deliver. If everyone came to work and lived into that every day, forget the public holiday and all that drama, that would be enough. Yeah. But I think we've all been into a business where the person at the front desk acts like they don't care that you're there, or at a service business where they kind of ignore you, or at a bar where you have one drink and they never come back. Those are the productivity.
That's your dates that are doing that. That's not to do with the waiters. So I guess my challenge to you though is there has been times in the past where we've been referred to as a rock star economy. What has changed from then till now?
Well, I think one of the key things
globalization.
But we're talking John Key, like 2015, right? Like that's not that long ago.
You also have to remember that during that period, the world is in a bull run. Yeah. Right. Like that is a time of global prosperity and to a degree certainty as well.
But the States,
I do tend to agree though. Like for example, right now Ireland has a hugely strong economy. Ireland is a very similar country to New Zealand geographically, population-wise, has lots of the same primary industries. It's very big primary industry based country, and their economy is doing miles better than ours.
And the States did like 3% GDP last year, which is like that's a pretty decent number. It's not like there's parts of the world, to your point, that aren't doing okay. And the other piece is the AI movement and like the amount of opportunity that's like you got to think when we look back in 10 or 20 years time, are there going to be countries that get this and countries that don't get this and go, my goodness, what an opportunity that was, and are we going to drop the ball and make the most of it?
Yeah, and New Zealand has traditionally been a number 8 wire mentality country. We have been ahead of the curve with innovation. Great innovation in this country, and so you did right. There's a huge opportunity for New Zealand to be ahead of that curve and use that mentality, but it's going to take a mind shift because we've been in this really hard period where everyone's bank account is empty and their will to carry on is probably diminished.
Yeah, well, I mean that innovation mindset, which we really were known for a long period of time. It feels like that's completely gone and it's not there anymore. And I want to talk about that. And I want to talk about when you look at these key pieces of data, it should indicate that the economy and businesses should be getting better, but they're not. And we will do that after the break.
If you're wondering how to take advantage of tax breaks and rate cuts, that's where the team at Lighthouse Accounting come in. The details are in the notes below. Now back to the show.
So Mike, we were known for leading in the innovation sector. I feel like we've lost that a little bit.
I'm not sure we've lost it 100%. I think it's kind of one of those things where because we've been going through such a tough time over the last 24 months, it may appear like we're not as innovative. We're not out there doing things. We're not number 8 wire. I think another piece of that is probably globalization to a degree. And we actually, number 8 wire was brought about by the fact that we were so isolated. We had to do things on our own. We couldn't just go out and get things from around. Yeah, we've lost that probably because of globalization. But is that such a bad thing? Well, it's not so long as the innovative mindset is still there, but we're collaborating with people overseas.
And I do think it's just a little less obvious than it's used to be.
You look at Rocket Lab. You look at there's a ton of companies doing really good stuff out there. Yeah.
And from my perspective, it might have sounded like I was a little bit down on the prospects of the country, and I definitely am disappointed in the path that we're going on, but I'm still here. And every good enterprising, hardworking person who decides to stay in New Zealand and not go to Australia or not go somewhere else, they're still here as well. So I believe that New Zealand can be a truly great country again. There's a huge amount of opportunity here. You look at Auckland, and I always refer to Auckland as Sydney 10 or 20 years ago. There's so much opportunity here for the taking. It's just we've got to get out there and get it.
Yeah, and I think one of the big things for looking forwards is interest rates are coming down. Inflation is coming down. So things are trending in the right direction kind of from a finance perspective. And one of the big things that does stimulate business confidence is access to capital. As the cost of capital comes down, reasonably speaking, access to capital should get easier. We are seeing a bit more money out there in the economy at the moment, especially for lending. What I would say though is if you look at the percentage of bank lending, which is going to houses as opposed to businesses, it is very much leaning in one direction, right? It was just heading more towards houses and more towards houses. I think it's somewhere like 70 or 80% now is on property and not on business.
You, Matt and I are looking at each other because we got a story about this. Yeah. So it is very easy for us to go out and get lending for investment property, right? But when you look at, so like Lighthouse is a team of like 40 people, running a big business, offering a lot of services. How hard is it for us to try and organize to get like an overdraft or the bond for this new property, right?
Yeah. So to get to forget the bond was a reasonable amount of money, but let's talk about the $50,000 overdraft, which I consider to be a pretty normal overdraft for a business. It's a risk buffer. Try not to use them, but if you have to, they're there. We had to jump through more paperwork to get that 50 grand overdraft than I ever would have had to borrow $1 million to buy a property. And not only that, the legal fees for going through that process are a good $1,000 to $1,500 more than the equivalent of buying $1 million property. So you can see 100% why the easy money's in the property market and it's hard to be in property. So the banks probably have something to answer for there.
Oh, 100%.
It shouldn't be that hard.
Yeah, and I think the other thing around that is like Kiwi Bank was brought in to try and help some of these problems, right? And absolutely they're doing their bit for Kiwi businesses, but at the end of the day, they can't fix everything. And there's got to be easier capital for small to medium businesses out there in the economy because we are an economy of small to medium businesses.
So to finish up, I guess coming back to, we're talking about some really fundamental components, but if you think about what's changed in terms of inflation coming down, the OCR coming down, the government announcing changes to try and stimulate business spending, why haven't we seen any results of this yet?
My personal opinion is just there's a huge long tail of a very high amount of mortgage debt coupled with very high interest rates. And Mike's probably better to articulate this than me, but just because we see a series of cuts, it doesn't flow through to the rate that a person pays quick enough.
Yeah, 100%. And the other thing as well, I think, is your interest, your official cash rate is coming down. And yeah, there's been some movement in the residential interest rates, but our official cash rate isn't at a stimulatory level yet. It's still at a restrictive level, which is meant to slow down the economy. And, they seem to go up really quick, but those home loan rates don't come down very quick, right? Even if we look at the amount of time it takes for the bank to cut from when the official cash rate announcement is made, that seems to be getting longer and longer. It used to be the day after. Now it's usually on the Monday. And then for some banks, it's like 2 or 3 weeks later before they even shift fixed rates. And they're not passing much along. I know some of it's priced in and there's all these arguments about it, but there always seems to be an argument as to why they can't reduce it. And they always seem to be able to increase it as soon as it goes up.
Yep, agree with that.
So let me ask you both to wrap it up. When are we going to start to see business confidence meaningfully increase?
I think that we need to see the interest rates in the very low 4s. And like I said at the start, there's a season for everything, and there will definitely be a season of prosperity again. When that is, my pick is the end of 26.
Yep, I think I agree. Interest rates in the low fours. If I could see something with a 3 in front of it, that's going to shoot a rocket into people in terms of capital. And then I also think the 20% tax break that they gave to everyone for investing into new plant and equipment, etc., assets for businesses, probably hasn't meant much from a financial perspective yet. But just as a good news story from a government trying to get an economy going, it's great. Just one, a lower interest rate and one more good piece of news like that, I honestly think would be a way to the races.
Awesome. Okay, Matt. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. Much love to Lighthouse Financial for sponsoring this episode. Let us know in the comments section, when do you think New Zealand is going to start pumping again? When are businesses going to get excited and start to invest and look to grow? Please give us a review, give us a like, subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.
Cheers.